Wow.
Okay, as we let people join, welcome back to the Israel Film Center Festival. We're happy to have you here, and we're going to get the conversation started in just a moment. This is the time where we get to look for our friends, see who's coming online. We hope you all enjoyed this film, The Electrifiers. This was such a charming, unique film, and really touched on a lot of chords. I feel like it could also be seen by different audiences in different ways and connects both universally and very, very personally, I'm sure, to some people who were familiar with the Israeli music scene, for instance. We are really excited to have here two special guests. I'll introduce them in a moment, but I'm just going to let some more people join the call as we get this all started. I'll also mention that tomorrow night is the film, we're having our conversation for the film, The Art of Waiting. If you haven't figured out the rhythm of the Israel Film Center Festival yet, from this day on, all of the films that are still available will be available for the entire festival. And then we will actually have Q&As every day at a set time. So join us for all the Q&As, really diverse films, great films. So please join us for everything that we have going on this week, and much, much more to come in these coming days. I hope everyone is also staying well and still staying safe. And we actually are have some guests in the back, and we're actually also going to be continuing programming throughout the summer with more programs that we feel are very relevant to everything that's going on right now in America and in our community. I'm now going to introduce our special guests for today. Please, first of all, the director of the film, Boaz Armoni, is here with us. Boaz, thank you.
Hello.
For joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely film. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce, you'll recognize him from the film, Zvika Nathan. Zvika, please join us. Zvika, you took your shirt off. You took the rock star shirt off. That you were
Yeah, it's hot here.
Here too. Thank you both so much for being here. And Zvika not only stars in the film, as you all probably recognize him. By the way, this is the time where I'm going to say you should move to speaker view so you could see everybody in close up. And I'll mention Zvika not only stars in the film, but also conceived of it and co-wrote of it in some ways and produced the film as well. So Zvika, tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea and how this all started.
Okay, I'll tell you just a little bit about myself. When I'm now around 60 years old. When I was younger, I was a musician and I was in an entertainment army troupe, what you call in Israel, Katzvait, and then I studied acting. And until the age of 28, I was a singer and an actor and a musician, but I decided to switch to the business world because my wife didn't like this profession and she was already pregnant, and she said that we won't make a good living out of that. So about, I think about 30 years, I was out of this profession. And then about 6-7 years ago, I came back and I studied movie making and producing. And my final film at school was something like this film that you're seeing. So it's a little bit about my life and what would have happened if I stayed a musician. So that's the basic story. And then after some I tried to write it on my own, but it didn't work so well. So I had about only 20% film. Then I met Boaz, and he understood more because he's really professional, and he And then we met some other co-writers, and together with Boaz, we wrote the script for the film that you're seeing now.
So Boaz, tell us from your perspective, how did you get involved, and what was your perspective on this whole project?
One day I met this guy, Zvika, and he told me he wanted to do a movie. And it's about it's about a band and a singer, the band, and one day they are getting fired, and that's about it. So I asked, then what? So and then, things happened. So from that point, we start to work on the script. I really like the idea of a rock band that is not successful for a long time. People have dreams, and they still dream it, like not just when they are 20, but also when they are in the 60s, because people have dreams, and sometimes they need just to have the dreams to get, life. So I really like this idea, and we start working on the scripts. It took a while to end with the script. We work with, like, as Zvika said, that with co-writers, but the core was still the same. Like the idea is like, it came from this base. There's this rock band with this with head singer that his dream is more powerful than life, and that's how it goes.
It's fascinating because I'm often wondering. I'm a little bit familiar with the music scene in Israel, and in many ways, I think there's a lot of references to past music greats, and we could get into those soon. But I'm often wondering what happens to those guys who had like a hit in the 80s in Israel, and you could only make so much money from one hit in the 80s in Israel, and where do they go, and where do they end up, and are they living in a van, and or teaching music, or are they plumbers? And this
really
look into it.
I'll tell you, it's so much more real than we think, because many people approached me, and they are well-known artists, and they said, this film is about me. And there were many of them, and it's really, it's not easy to be a singer when you're 60, and it's just like that. Life is not easy, and you don't have a stable job, and you're dependent on stuff that happens around you. And in this matter, I was surprised, because when I approached the film, I thought it would be just a really light comedy about the world of, people that stay in the same job for 30 years. Because if you're playing in a hotel, it's like the Billy Joel song Piano Man. It's sometimes if you're 30, it's okay, but if you're 60 and you're in the same bar, it's less joyful for you. And the film became more drama and more serious than I expected. So the final film is really, it's exceeded my expectations, because people didn't see it as a comedy, but they saw it more as a more deep looking at this world.
I agree. I agree, though. I will say there's great drama in it and some serious points, which we could also discuss. But there were also a lot of laugh out loud moments where I actually found that the comedy worked too, and that's not easy. Boaz, you were going to say?
No, I just say it's kind of a tragic comedy. It's like you have this tragic. It's very tragic to see those people. The bunch of losers that they're not successful in any kind of society approach for successfulness. They're not, but in their own private world, the dreams that makes them tick. It's a unique thing. Like in the tragic, you have this thing that you can identify with it, and the both sides of the thing. It makes it what makes it funny. You know, that what this is where the comedy hides between the tragic and real life. It's comedy.
I also think, I really think that there is something important. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm sure that if you walk in New York, even now, people over 60 are sure that the big thing is still ahead, and they are going to make it. And this is not only an Israeli thing, it's a worldwide thing, that artists are working just now, right now, on their big project that will come out soon. And you know it's not going to happen, but some people, they don't understand that, and they really think and believe that it's going to happen. It's like Little Miss Sunshine, that they think they are in, you know, big things are going to happen, but you know it's not going to happen. That's the film, that the people, the characters, they live in a world of fantasy. They really believe that something is big is going to happen, and you know it won't. So
and this all connects very much to me to one of my thoughts about the film, which is that makes it extremely universal. And this goes beyond artists, but it's a little bit about people who are refusing to grow up.
Yeah.
And that's something that it might be universal, or it might be, which there's another statement in this film, I think, a little bit about Israeli men specifically.
It's about
maybe.
Zvika. It's about Zvika specific.
It's not just Zvika. I've met other Israeli men. There seems to be a complex there of not growing up, more so. Yes, New York, sure, we have plenty of those, but what do you think that in general, I'd say the statement of Israeli men who are living in the past and trying to stay young and wearing their jeans a little too tight. You notice the phenomenon?
You really think it's just an Israeli thing?
No, I don't think it's just in Israel, but I think it's very strong in Israel, this phenomenon.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is something maybe that you see from the outside, but when you say it, it makes me think that I give you an example for myself. If I think about why sometimes I'm immature, say.
Exactly.
I think
it's called,
you know,
it's called, in English they say infantile.
Yeah, exactly. Infantile. Sometimes I'm infantile. I think it's from my perspective, like my personal perspective, is that I think maybe it's connected to the army experience, because it's like when you have like when you are 18 in the United States, you go to the college where you are, you know, you take it to the extreme of, I don't know, behavior, like you're losing everything, you're doing things that's very immature, you know, you get into the peak of it, and then you start your adult life. In Israel, I don't think you have this thing, because from 18 you become in the army. It's very mature, this thing. It's very serious thing. It's very, you know, so maybe you don't have the place, you know, in the right time to take it out. And then when you go after it, you start the life. You don't really, so maybe you maintain a little bit immature through your life, you know, to balance it. But this is just me thinking out loud. I don't know if it's maybe.
We could get into it a little bit more, and I'm sure there's books written about Israeli men and how the army has influenced them as well. But before we open it to questions from the audience, I wanted to ask, this is a little bit of a complex question. Who would you say, I mean, I know Zvika's a little bit of the character that this is based on, but if there was a band that was the Electrifier, since this is a fictional band, who would you say, and this goes to both of you, who would you say that band would be? And that also then connects what I love. One of the things I loved about the film that I personally connect to is the cameos that are in this film of stars from the 80s and 90s who are people that might be kind of relevant. I think I noticed Zvika Armoni there, who was kind of like, for a moment had one great album and then disappeared a little bit. Has been working throughout, but has never really reached that level of stardom again.
Yes. So you ask about like an Israeli band?
Yeah.
No, you can
or
say just maybe Adam, which was a big singer and nobody knows him anymore.
Yeah.
Or even someone that is dead already, Gabi Shoshan, that went to America and tried to make it in America and didn't make it and, fell into drugs and then committed suicide.
Mm.
So it's tough sometimes. But many,
yes,
Arik Sinai, even Siheiman that was in the film, she had her big moments and now, so there are a few of them that are still
yes.
here with us and they are fitting the profile.
Yeah, yeah, you have like the thing is with the electrifiers, what we thought is like they're actually except Ellie the cat, like it was the only hit song that they had. There was they were never really successful, even in the 80s. They had like one half a hit. So when we based like the thinking about the band, what kind of band, we found a lot of bands that nobody heard about him, like the Tracks or the Kids or some bands, that they did like they did maybe one or two albums and nobody remembered them. So this is like we open like a door for a lot of bands that except the people who were in the bands and maybe the close family, nobody remembers them. So, but they're still part of these bands are still working till today. So it's you can find it, but it's really unfamiliar band. This is the thing, you know.
I also think that you'll see all around the world, in America also, people that are a little ashamed that they appeared in a show for really little children, and they don't want that to be the main thing that people are thinking about them. And you can see it with poets. If they wrote a children's song, they say, okay, that was something I did, but I'm not really proud of it. Listen to my adult stuff. And that's something that really is really strong. They don't want to be recognized as the band that sang the Mitzi Mitzi Eli the Cat. They wanted to be rock stars, but everybody knows them as a children's success one song, and that's also funny. That's really a part that he was. And I saw, I saw actually a documentary about Israeli poets that was that they didn't want them to be recognized as children's poet. So that's also something. I don't know if you saw it.
No, but I do see in Israeli media there was actually probably more so than here a lot of overlap of people who had to do an episode of Bli Sodot or of Parpar Nechmad, these children's
Exactly.
shows,
Yeah,
and had their little
yeah,
song there or sang in a festival. And actually every major Israeli singer band has performed in a festival. It's required.
yes,
And you could take the
yes,
most high quality singer in the world, like you could take, and I don't want to give any examples of who's the high quality, but they've all appeared singing some stupid song in a festival, and maybe that's
exactly.
what
Look,
they're most remembered for.
think about Bruce Springsteen singing a stupid children's song just for earning money.
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny. But
Did
but
he
but the
do
thing
it?
is, what? Actually, it's interesting. Maybe we can ask him. But
No.
but but
There is
but
this phenomenon now. I just read this article on about a lot of big stars who are, once they're stars already, appear on Sesame Street and become
oh yeah,
bigger stars. Like there's these
for
these
children.
kids will watch their videos over and over again, and they'll become bigger
Yeah,
stars. And then when they're walking around the street, they're not recognized by any of the adults, but the kids are running up to them.
That's funny.
yeah. No, in Israel, it's not the reason. The reason is that people just have to work to earn money. This is because
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
in a way, I think
but
that's maybe different because the Israeli artist must do everything, while American artists can stick to one thing because the market is bigger and they can stick to what they're doing. But still, American big actors are appearing in commercials all over the world, which are not on in the US. But you can see George Clooney with Nespresso, I think, all over the world. Do are you familiar with this phenomenon? That
Yeah. They'll do an Asian commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah, they sell out and they're in a Chinese commercial.
As long as it's not on in the US.
Yeah, right. That's sometimes the rule. Do you think this could still exist today? Do you think? I mean, I think a lot of this phenomenon of these one-hit wonders that don't have huge success can come out of Israel of the 80s, which was a much more innocent time. Today, when Israel both has a bigger industry and it's kind of grown as a population, and the film and the music industry has also grown. Do you think that we'll still see this in the future?
Of course.
Yeah.
I think.
Think about Static and Ben El, or everybody that is big. Everybody that is really big now. I don't think they'll be big more than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, but I think now, first of all, yeah, I agree. It could be now, but I think now the new generation are less naive. Like they are much more, they understand the situation much quicker. They understand how to market themselves. People, people know how to build a name. If they do that, they know exactly where things are going, and sometimes if they not succeed, they go to do something else. But I think what happens with those characters that they're in the 80s, and they have a lot of it was a different type. People were much more naive. Usually they had like agents to take care of this business. They never knew do themselves. And so I think, because it was a different time, it was much more, and another thing is that they were the first, like people who see them today, young people see them today, they said, yeah, I like this music, but I don't want to be like him in the late 60s. So what can I not do? So,
no, but I think that it will surely exist now. For instance, someone like Peter Frampton, you know that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that was just for a year or 3, and these things will continue. So the theme of you are being about 60 and look back and say, what did I do with my life? It will be always there. I don't think that somebody that is big now will stay big 30, 40 years. That's the exception. Most of the people will be really, they will have 1 or 2 or 3 hits and then be replaced. And then it's a very, very, it's hard to be in this situation, because when you know that you had a big demand and suddenly you don't have it, you just don't understand why people are not calling you anymore and why you don't have hits anymore. So I think that's something in the movie that is very strongly expressed. You agree?
Sure. Yeah, I want to ask one more question, sorry, and then we're going to take a question from the audience. My last question is, I don't know how many of the viewers actually, I felt that the film was filled with references, and one of the key ones is Ad Pop. I happen to know the show Ad Pop that was often led by Ehud Manor, who was one of the greatest minds, but somehow also became a TV host for, he wrote so much, but he did it all, and he was the leading voice on music. And anybody who appeared, this was the one show on the one Israeli channel that would put on Israeli music and with these live performances. And if you appeared on that show, you were the biggest star that week in Israel. And how did you go about recreating that set? And is there like rights? Were you allowed to recreate all of this? Tell me about the Ad Pop element. Ad Pop was the show they appeared on that we keep watching videos from.
Actually, the first idea
was Boaz's idea.
Yeah, the first idea was actually to take to try like to combine original footage, like with Ehud Manor, that he talks with the band. You know, he's the original Ehud Manor footage, talk with the band, like the that we shoot for that, but we didn't find enough materials to do this matching.
That would have been awesome.
So what?
That would have been
It's
awesome.
like, yeah, we tried to do that, and it was really complicated, and so what we did, we just recreated all.
No, we
like
could have done
we-
it. We could have done it, but the problem was how to end it, because we could have, because Ehud Manor is already dead, so we could take you know, questions that were okay, like what's your next move, or you know, but then
yeah,
the host had to say the electrifiers are going, you know, and then this we didn't have, so we decided to drop it.
yeah. So we actually built, we recreated the studio. We had like we got the rights to do that from the
Yeah.
channel one, like from the late channel one, from this archive. And we also use old cameras, like old format, like high band formats, and we shot it like in old cameras. And yeah, we look the specific texture of the 80s of art pop. So people who know the show like really can connect with that, because it really was like a big show, and you know, yep.
Yeah, there was no choice. You had to watch that show.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just one channel. Yeah,
Let me
100% rating. Yeah.
Let me take a question from our audience. Celeste, you have a question. You're on the line. Celeste, you've been unmuted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, and you
Ah.
can see me.
Hello, Celeste.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I so connected with so many things about it. Thank you for that wonderful, delightful, and deep movie. It was functioning on many levels. I have two questions. One is, I'm very curious about the van. Was that a van that existed? It looked exactly like something that would have been painted in the 60s. The inside of it too. So I wondered about all of that.
No, it's all work of the art director. It's a regular van, and they just created it especially for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great job.
We actually what we look for a van like from the late 80s. I had in my mind like the van of A-Team, you know, like, but the bigger size. And the funny story is that we found one, but it was really someone that really kept it really good. It looks good. It looks amazing. So we actually wrecked it. We beat the hell of it. We just we put the rust on it, and we just, you know, bent it, and it's become like their van, like very old one.
It's they did really a great job, the art department, but what happened was that they put all these lights inside the van, like they turned it into a disco, and then it turned off all the time, and we had to restart it. So it was really not easy to handle this.
Yeah. The van was living hell. We like it was really old and wouldn't start, and the air conditioning was gone. It was, I don't know if it was a good idea actually, but it came out good in the end.
Many times we just towed it.
I have a question from Faye. Faye, you're on the line.
Yeah, I noticed in the credits that there was a Kiev crew. What parts of the film were shot in Kiev?
This is it's very nice that you asked this question, because because actually what we shot in Kiev it's New York, like the airport. We didn't shot it in the US. We shot it in Kiev airport. This
All the
actually
airports.
Often when I'm in JFK, I feel like I'm in Kiev.
yeah, exactly.
It was just
yeah,
they
JFK, New York. Yeah,
they had an empty airport, brand new, and they have a big set, and they can just create the atmosphere of United States airport. So, and it's cheaper, of course, to shoot there. So we did it there. All the scenes
Yeah.
of the airport are shot in Kiev. Yeah.
Nice. Well done. Well done. In general, let me add on.
And also, I think we shot the inside of the Brooklyn Jewish.
yeah. When it comes to the show in Brooklyn, the inside is also in Kiev.
Yeah.
So am I remembering
the handicap? What?
Where they sang the Tikva and everything?
Yeah.
It was in Kiev.
With the handicap, it's Kiev. Yeah.
I thought it was shot at our JCC, but I do remember. Am I remembering a shot in Times Square or not? Is that my imagination?
Yeah. We had we have some shots in New York, the Outsider. Actually, we have a big sequence, a very funny sequence actually, but that we shot in New York, but we cut it out in the end. We shot like all the voyage from New York to Manhattan, and then you think that they get to Manhattan, but then they understand that they go to Brooklyn. So we had all the shots with a taxi, like to the peak, and then go to the bridge, and then you go to this neighborhood, like not so much, and we we shot all over, but in the end we cut it because it was funny, but it was too long. So what we had in the end, just they get to Times Square, and they are in Brooklyn. So yeah.
Very cool. I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about the production. I've heard that it's a unique production, that it was somewhat more independent than most Israeli productions. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, actually, it wasn't that different from any other film, but I managed to raise most of the money, or almost all of it, from my American companies that I own. I'm working in Florida in real estate, and some of these companies could have financed the film. So we were really fortunate to have that. And we didn't have to wait for the Israeli funds to approve. But once we started to work, I think it was not so different from any other production. And I just want to thank Boaz again for this big creation, because now when it's about a year later or more, right? I think we're 2 years after shooting.
Yeah.
You can really see that every movie, and of course this movie as well, is such a big effort of everybody, and like really a big journey. And it was worth it.
It comes out great. Let me take a question from Gail. Gail is on the line.
Hi. Well, as a boomer, the movie really resonated with me. But I have a more general question. I've been binging these movies all the week, and I keep seeing the same actors over and over again. And is the supply, like Tal Friedman was in both 2 nights in a row. I got to see him. And then the guy who was head of the Mossad in Mossad is in Art of Waiting. So is the supply of actors growing now that the industry is it keeping pace with the industry, I guess?
The what, sorry?
Do we have enough actors?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Tal Friedman is like Adam Sandler in Israel. So he's the reason that you have like some in the movies. But it's an interesting question that you ask, and I think it's connected also for what we talk about the musicians. When Israel is a very small market, and there's not a lot of place, you know, and work for a lot of people. So when you see a lot of actresses when you in the ages of 20 and 30, because a lot of people wants to be actors, and so in these ages you have a lot. But when you get older, less and less people stick to the
Profession.
to the profession because it's not enough work. It's kind of sad actually. So even when we thought about the you know, the characters, we saw a bunch of players, you know, but there's not huge amount in those, you know, in those ages. So yeah, there's not a lot. This is actually the question, the answer. There's not, in these ages you don't have huge amount of people to choose from.
Yeah, and usually doing a movie, you want to stick to what's, you know, to what you know. So usually you will always take actors that are already really doing things right now, and then you feel safer. You can see it anywhere. You will just see the same guys, and it's true what you're saying.
We have another question from Lori. Lori, are you on the line?
Hi. No, you said that this was based on your life, and I just wondered if some of these very colorful other characters are also based on people you really know, on real people, or any of these outrageous experiences were based on something that really happened.
Yeah.
How on earth did you think of all these charming things?
No. Many many things are actually real. We were actually fired from a hotel, and the pianist was there, and the manager Victor was there. So it was just altered, but these things happened. And actually we were replaced by a DJ. We were a band. We were 3 people, me, a pianist, and a saxophone player. And then they came to us one day and they said, "Thank you very much. We're replacing you." And they just put one person that put music, and that pissed us. We were really angry because we said, "Are you replacing live music with somebody that puts records?" And they said, "Yes, it's cheap." So, you know, you're really right. It's many of the things are based on true events.
Who is Eli Yatzpan, who plays your
Victor
agent in a, right, plays Victor in a fat suit, I believe it's called.
yeah.
Who is he a reference to? What a character he's playing there.
Oh, he was really altered because the real character was a guy that from South Africa that was an entertainment manager in a big hotel, and his name was Victor. So he had to be like with a South African accent, but that character was changed to a typical Israeli, manager. But and his character
with Iraqi accent.
Yeah, but he really likes us. He likes the Electrifiers. He's like the only one that really gives them money and job, and still believes that they were okay. It's like a father figure.
Yeah. All right, let's take one last question from Perry. Perry.
Hi. Growing up in Israel, did you have any influences among the Israeli bands or any Israeli musicians growing up as a kid that you got into Israeli music?
Yeah, of course I was influenced by Israeli music and American music, but if I mention the Israeli music was like Arik Einstein, Shalom Hanoch, these guys that we grew up on, and they were a big influence, and also American music from the 60s, like things that, you know, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and that's also something that is now not so strong, and you miss it because you say, okay, I don't know what's going on today, but I know that somewhere along the way there was real music, and I don't know, and the character actually says that in the movie, that there used to be music and it's not there anymore.
I think that's what the character's father also said when he was at a certain age, and will probably continue on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And actually, one of those scenes that I love the most in the film is when they go to that young club and they're seeing the music that that generation's listening to and having kind of that out of body experience. It's a great moment and a great reference to it all. Guys, such a charming, wonderful film. Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll let you get to bed.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Tomorrow night we have a conversation with The Art of Waiting.